guys, today I'm going to be painting Liliarch, the Medusa lady with hair for Massive Darkness. So this model was not too bad when it came to the mold lines here, but there was quite a bit of it. And this model is again quite detailed, as all CMON models tend to be, whether you realize it in all gray plastic or not. So there's this one line here on the tail, probably the most noticeable, but also actually fairly easy to get off. I was worried this wouldn't be very easy with the texture on that tail, but it pretty much goes away to nothing fairly easily. Otherwise, it's a little bit on the side there on those kind of tail plates. It's little bits of armor she has. And then there's going to be kind of more throughout, but it's worth it for the detail you get, because, you know, she's got all these bracelets and, you know, armor pieces and swords and, you know, some detailed hair and a bajillion arms. And by bajillion, I mean about 8. So there's 4 on each side, unless I'm terrible at counting. Later on, when painting this and flipping between all these arms. Oh, so you see right there the little bent sword. I'm gonna fix that. I'll create a video later for that, and if I already have it, I will link it, so be on the lookout for that. Anyway, painting these arms, turning them around, painting like one sword hilt and then the other, I would lose track of which arm it was, right? You kind of have to turn it around and look. But a very cool model, very, very nicely done. The arms are separated, and some are going forward, some are going back, and some are straight up and down, to the point where there aren't really any hard to reach places, which was very nice. A different change from the giant spider from Massive Darkness, who also looks great and also has, 8 arms, but they're they go into his body at an odd angle that's kind of hard to paint. The hardest part here is probably that hair, just getting into all the little bits, because it is so greatly detailed. It's not like a texture, it's just different mold pieces, more or less. And then, of course, underneath there, that her upper neck and back can be kind of difficult to get. But other than that, you see the very minimal mold lines on her hair. It's actually pretty nice. Sometimes hair can be really frustrating, but a little bit there just in the front, so it's not going all the way down like within it. And we're going to start with Deathguard Green. That's going to be for her skin. This is going to be the darkest green. I'm going to lighten it up with highlights later on, and we're just going to get in there. Remember her chest is not completely covered, so be sure to kind of get on the sides and below and on top of there. You don't want any gray showing up. I primed gray. If you primed black, black tends to be a bit more forgiving, because typically where you miss it is where there are shadows, in which case black works with shadow quite well. So pretty minimal. So if you're ever starting out or just want to be more careful, or if you want a darker color, start with a black, because all these paints, especially as thinned as we put them, are pretty opaque, and therefore you can see through it to the bottom layer, believe it or not. So if you paint on like a white, it would be much brighter. Gray is kind of in between, and black is much darker. So sometimes I tend to go gray just because I don't like having to decide and change between them and buy multiple primers, because you can prime green or red even too if something's mostly that way, but I just do everything gray. It's kind of a happy medium. It allows me to paint bright colors and dark colors with a fair amount of ease, but I've never really had too much trouble with it anyway. So again, getting in all these arms. The arms are, I don't think there's any one that's straight arm, shoulder to sword. She has either a kind of a bracelet or an arm guard or some kind of jewelry or what have you. I don't know. She constantly has stuff on her arms that will make it to where you have to make sure to get in between them and stop. You can't just kind of blob it on there. That one I just painted to the arm guard's fairly okay, because it goes to the arm guard and then it's the hand. That's probably the easiest one. Otherwise, you can see I'm kind of painting in between here, and you can see a little bit of the hand there around that kind of snake wrap jewelry thing she has. So be sure to get in those little bits. All right, there's lots of these little ones. Again, there's 8 arms, and each one pretty much has 1 to 2 to 3 of these, it seems. Be sure to get her face. I'm just going to cover the whole thing up. The only thing she has on her face detail-wise says highlights is some lipstick, or at least different colored lips, and eyes. So not too bad there. And the eyes and the concept art, I don't know if you noticed, are really faint. So I'm not going to make them really bright later on. So they're just kind of barely noticeable. It's more of a perceived thing than I think anything. It certainly won't look like my ogre who has a lazy eye, which fitting for an ogre, but that's more or less just my painting skills showing than anything. So again, just making sure I get every little bit. I'll be turning it around quite often, getting all the different angles. And when I do that, I also try to plan which one I'm going to go to next. That allows me to not turn it a great amount, but I want to finish a hand first. So I'll be painting one and then turning it. Otherwise, I'm going to forget like the bottom of a thumb or something like that. I tend to do that when people have two hands. So painting 8 of these are definitely going to cause me to forget something if I don't finish what I start. Because you could like face the model in the back and then just paint all the backs and then paint all the fronts. Maybe that works for you. I don't know. This is the best system I have for making sure I do get everything. You know, again, it's kind of hard. That being said, it's really easy to paint. Her hands are all just kind of clenched around. There's nothing weird going on. They're pretty much all just fists, you know, wrapped around different tools of death and destruction. I think her card says she's like the demon of pain or whatever. It doesn't say demoness, I don't think. Is demoness a word? Am I making that up? I don't know. She's not a pleasant snake person to come into. I don't know what she is. She's not a naga. She's not a mermaid. She's not a Medusa. She's Math of Darkness, roaming monster, I guess. Anyway, almost wrapping up on these hands here. Again, you can just see every single one. It look like in between the little plates there. Lothern blue. I know this is a very bright blue. It will not stay this bright, but this is a good. I like the color of it, and so I'm just going to essentially shade in the color, and then I'll bring it back to a little bit brighter. It'll never be this bright though, and nor do I want it to be. So this is kind of interesting because normally, well, like I said, it depends. So a lot of times, like for the skin, I painted the darkest color I wanted, and I'll lighten it up. And here, I'm painting brighter than I ever want it to be, and I'll darken it up. So it's kind of different techniques depending on what you're doing. So I'm not using any shade on the skin, and I am on here, and so that's probably the difference there. Again, I'm using my regiment brush and just trying to save some time, so I won't be able to get the fine details on the first pass. I don't know if it actually saves time, because then you have to swap brushes. You have to clean this one out and make sure it doesn't, you know, get all nasty, and go to your detail brush, your character brush, or whatever you have that's smaller. But you can paint, and then you have to go over it and make sure you don't miss any spots, which I think I did end up doing and had to touch up off camera a little bit. Alternatively, if you painted the whole thing in that small brush, you would be able to finish a spot and then move on. I have to go back twice, but you can't hold nearly as much paint, covers nearly as much ground. So at least if it's not quicker, I found this easier. This tail is kind of interesting. So it really twists at the end there. So see how I was really confused. I thought maybe the mold was bad, for the mini because of how that twist goes and the top stops and the bottom goes up, but that's fine. That's not a big deal. Yeah, and getting in this little twirl here is kind of difficult. So, moving on to the, detail brush. This is actually the character brush, not the detail brush. I do not have the detail brush. I don't have a local game store that will sell one to me. And on Amazon, they did not have Prime shipping, which at that point means will not exist to me. So hopefully I get one soon, and they look a little bit better. I think it looks like the tip is about the same, but the length of the bristle isn't quite as much. Here's some light green blue. I had to go out and buy this specifically for this. Kind of middle scales here, I guess. I'm assuming it's part of her scales. So it looks almost like a cloth up there, what I'm painting right now at the top. See, it almost looks kind of wrapped around or whatever, but the concept art, I don't know, it looks like scales to me. So if nothing else, they're plated, but so is that kind of armor on her back, and you only know that's not real because of the shield up front. So it's whatever, but it's kind of a cool blue. I like it. Again, it's starting out pretty bright, and I'm just kind of generally painting in there. The mold is not super detailed there. Like, it has a texture, but it's not like really defined or anything. So I'm just kind of generally painting the bottom part of it, just trying to make sure I cover up all the gray, really. And I can fuss over it later because I'll play with it a bit more. And again, just kind of shoving my brush under there and hoping and praying I'm getting it. Some Evil Sun's Scarlet. You'll see this red a lot in my videos. It is kind of my race car red, or my, you know, wagon red or something like that. It's just a very bright, very colorful standard red that I like to use. It's also really the only standard red I have, which might have it. So if you notice, I quickly globbed on the regiment brush and then went back to my character brush here to get the fine detail. I also skipped that middle part. I'll end up putting that red. I wasn't sure if it was like a leather strap, but it looks, especially on the other side, like it's angled just like this, so I'm going to paint it the same way. Painting this is almost like a mini assembly line if you ever painted mini units, whether it's, you know, from the tabletop wargaming or just the minions and bosses, perhaps. But I end up just kind of painting the tops of all of them, you know, or at least a good 5 or 6 or, you know, whatever, however many I feel. So see right there real quick, not painting the sides, and then I'll go in and just kind of swoosh the sides. It allows you to kind of get the hand motion down, kind of like if you were drawing and you just needed to do a whole bunch of shapes that were close. It makes it a little bit easier. If you go from kind of the flat top to then getting the angle, sometimes it can mess up a little bit. These, however, are too different, but I'm still going to stay that kind of organized there, but you won't get that kind of muscle memory involved in this. So kind of like just getting the tops and the sides there, just real quick. And those are the same scales. And then I'm going to paint the entire middle part here. I kind of liked it better this way, but I will change that kind of heart shape back to gold. If you look at the concept art, that is in fact gold. So it's not raised like the rest, so I didn't think so looking at it, and I wasn't referencing that closely on the shield to notice that. At least it escaped my my look into it. So I will change that later on, but for now it's red. You can paint it red if you like. I actually like it better that way. There's a little gem there on her belt loop thing, and then her chest covering is slightly different than the concept art. It's a different design, so I just decided to paint the bottom red. Moving on to Gehenna's Gold. This is not for her, the side of her base. Instead, this is for all of the gold she has a lot here, especially in her shield is the biggest piece, but she'll have it kind of throughout on different things, you'll see. Make sure to get the sides and kind of the back there. A lot of times, at least when I'm painting, I kind of forget. You see right there in the back, and I'll get it here, but many times I do forget that, you know, these pieces, depending on where you're sitting, I typically sit with everything facing me, mostly because I'm always the one running different parts of the game, whether it's handing out loot cards or, you know, giving dice to people or whatever, right? And so they're always facing me, so a lot of times I forget these will be seen at other angles depending on where you're sitting on the table, right? So make sure to get as much as you can coverage-wise. Well, it's going to be a fair distance away on the table. Gray will stand out quite a bit. Again, if you primed them black, maybe not. And you might be able to be okay skipping little bits like that. That's probably too big a bit, but you don't have to be quite as careful on your coverage when you do black. But it will be a darker. You would have to put more layers, which I absolutely hate putting extra layers on. This gold is one of them. I don't know if it's just a Citadel gold or not, but at least with this Gehenna's Gold, it does not like to cover consistently. So you will continue to see gray through it until I give it 2, 3, 4 layers sometimes. Which, and I have to keep it watered down or it gets really kind of solidified and goopy, which is not fun to paint with. So, and it's rough on the brush. Again, getting all those little things, they're just various shapes. They're really easy to tell. It looks kind of blended here, but it's quite easy to tell what you're painting when you're actually holding it. These sides, not quite as much. They're just these kind of little tassel rope bits of some kind. And in the shadow, it can be kind of hard to see, but you can, again, it is kind of the only raised part there. It's not too bad. And again, I'm just using my character brush and I'm able to get it kind of in well-fill swoop, more or less, maybe get a little bit on the edges, but otherwise pretty okay. All right. And now moving on to, again, many details on this monster, many little things, especially in the arms. So she's got like this snake wrap thing. I think it's a snake. I think there's a head on it somewhere. I didn't paint in any detail to it. It's just all gold. I'm assuming all this is just kind of jewelry. I imagine she bedazzles in her off time or something. And then some gold looking hilts. Now, I'm not going to paint all of the hilts. If you looked on the concept art, there were some that were blue, which I actually kind of like. I think it's kind of cool. So I will try and kind of match that. But getting these looped, they loop several times over. They're the sides are very small. I'm going to paint this in gold, not because it's going to stay gold throughout it because I still have to paint it brown and dry brush and all that. But just to remember that it's there because that's a very small line. I wanted to remind myself with some paint. I don't know if that's weird. I do that sometimes. If you recall my cockatrix, I just kind of threw some paint on the kind of neck gizzard thing or whatever that is, just to, again, remind myself that that's not to be finished painting, and was instead going to be red. You also see there's some detail work. I'll get some gold in that too, but that will need to be painted afterwards. But it's a little bit more noticeable, so I don't remind myself on that. Again, just kind of getting all these little ones. I'm checking the concept art here to make sure I paint the right ones, because again, there will be some that will be a different color. And then her headband. It's actually easier on the concept art. It looks a little bit detailed on this. You can just paint the whole thing gold. It's quite easy. It has a good lip on the top that you can get the side very easily, and the bottom, it's at a good angle where you're not going to get her face. And then there are two little ones you saw me paint them real quick there, holding her kind of hair that goes over her shoulders. There's two little holders there. And then finally her chest covering here. Again, it is a different design, but I went gold on top, red on bottom. Now, at this point, you might notice with the gold, the blue, and the red, my wife deemed this monster the Wonder Woman monster. I had not noticed that before. Here's some contour blue. We're going to get some more blue here. I just wanted to get a different blue. The concept art, you know, how it's drawn and shaded, just the art style, it's kind of hard to really tell exact color, and especially differences because the lighting can be all over the place. But this is just a bit of a more solid, regular blue. Like if you just think of the color, it's, I think, typically what comes to mind. And these are for these kind of various armbands she has there. And then for the two hilts. And then there was that one kind of, it almost looks like a rope bracelet of some kind that I went and put over on blue as well. So she has one covering on her arm that's blue. Again, just adding a little bit of difference there. Some Storm Host Silver. This is going to be for all the swords. And again, you're just going to cover them straight. I cover pretty much the whole thing. You know, just, again, remembering to get both sides, especially because I'm using gray, which does make it a bit harder to tell, especially with such a light silver. I'm going to wash these, and so I wanted it to start out kind of bright, because I'm not going to be doing a lot of highlighting on all of these. I like how she has a different blade in every single hand. Like, she's not repeating anything. Like, she has two daggers, but even the daggers are different. Otherwise, she has like a scimitar and some other kinds of tools of destruction of some kind. So, you know, again, being careful here with the hair. Not too much, but I struggle when painting over metallic, so I'd rather not get it anywhere that I would have to paint a different color, like her hair, because she does not have metallic hair. You can check that concept art and confirm that if you wish, but I promise. And okay, now getting on the little pummel there at the end of the hilt. Just, again, I chose silver. I could have done gold, but she has plenty of gold, so I'm not too worried about it. And those are pretty easy, just making sure you get it covered nicely. Make sure you get every single one. Again, they're all at different angles and different sides there. Some Rhinox hide. And this is going to be for the armband and her hair. So again, I'm going to kind of paint around that, but I'll have to touch it up anyway, especially because it does wrap around a second time. I was actually able to paint it pretty well. I probably could have painted the gold first, but if I can, I try to play dark to light instead of or if nothing else, the details last, regardless of color, I suppose, because I'll do dark details afterwards still too. And then again on the hair, it's actually pretty easy. I was worried I'd get it on the skin. I did not on the first try, so yay for me and my shaky hands. That ended up well. And then the rest of the hair will just kind of be making sure you get all the angles. And I kept finding spots I missed. I don't know, again, because it's just so... It's not like textured hair like you'd see like fur or something like that, or even some hair will be like that. Instead, it's really just kind of... It's got all these different sides. I also, if you notice, have this maybe slightly watered down too much. It just meant I had to go over it multiple times, and could have possibly hurt my coverage. Perhaps some of the times it just kind of ran down, and that's why I kept seeing the gray. But I had to go over this hair quite a few times. I'm not going to put you guys through that because it's boring after the first time, but you can kind of see, you can really see actually the shape. This is one of the few times where when you just paint it, especially if it's a dark color like this, I feel like you lose some of the texture. Like if you were to look at this at the table with it dark, you don't really notice the hair texture quite as well. Once I get it painted a couple times and it gets darker, like again right now it's kind of transparent. But that's what highlighting for. That's what dry brushing is for. It'll look good afterwards. But dark colors typically it's kind of like a blob on the table, at least to my eyes. Okay, and then going in with some red again to get these. I don't know why I put these off. I kept looking at them and I knew I needed to do them, and I kept going to new colors. Maybe I got bored. I'm not sure. But these kind of arm guards she has. I don't know if they're actually helping. Maybe they're like Wonder Woman's bracelets. In which case, she could probably use them way better because she's got like 8 arms to block with, you know? Like she can really, you know, she could deflect a lot of bullets or arrows or, you know, whatever. And there was one little small one there, as you can see. So just getting that smaller one. And then on the other side, she then has this kind of big one that's less ornately decorated, though it still is a little bit, and then kind of a elbow pad. Wants to protect that elbow, I suppose, I guess. Okay, I'm gonna put in those gold details now. I'll have the gold out still, and it's not globbed up like I said it does sometimes. And you know, this is actually pretty easy too. You just get a small brush, take your time. So I'm actually not using my insane detail brush. I probably should have. I don't like using the insane detail brush on anything that I need to do more than like an eye with, just because it doesn't hold paint very well. I'd be putting gold on that constantly. With this, I get a good enough point, a good enough control. I feel I can do pretty good detail work and have it pretty exact. I actually get a little bit big there. I'll touch it up with some red off camera. Not a big deal. Steel Legion drab. I always call this Steel Legion brown, but it's drab. But it is a brown. This is just for the kind of wrappings on the hilt that I'm assuming she's grabbing but covering with her hand. So just little tiny bits on most of this sword hilt. So the one that was kind of bendy before, and actually it's still not perfect even after the hot water trick, does not have any. It looks like it's just solid metal. But I painted it in there anyway. I just didn't see texture for it. So you just saw me kind of do that there with the kind of larger blade in front there. And we're on to shading. This is a Drusi Violet. Drusi Violet. I have no idea how to say these names. Nobody does. Except probably Games Workshop, but they got to copyright everything. So that's why they're all weird names. And this is covering up that blue like I said I would. So I'm just going to use my regiment brush, but I'm not laying it on heavy either. I'm just trying to get good coverage. I don't typically glob on shade, at least too heavily. I know a lot of people do. I guess I haven't really done many capes yet either. Perhaps I will in those to really get the kind of recesses. And I'm going to cover up that heel. Do not fret though, will not stay that color. I just really wanted to get the same kind of colored violet shadow in between the ridges. Otherwise I'll highlight that up. So here is with the contour blue again. No, I lied actually. This is not that. It's a little unfocused, I apologize. But this is that Steel Legion drab on these kind of wrappings here. I noticed this after the fact. Again, it wasn't the concept art. Now I'm going to dry brush that same Steel Legion drab onto the hair to bring out that detail I covered up with the dark brown. Again, pretty easy. Her hair is fairly separate except for that sword, but you can always bend the sword out of it. Make sure to get the bottom or the back, the underside of it. I don't know what you call that. The inside. There you go. And again, bring out that texture on the arm guard with a quick dry brush. All right. This is just a show I'm now highlighting, so I'm mixing some white in there. This is some white and red. It's about 80% red with about 20% white. I almost said 10%, but that's because math escapes me whenever I speak it out loud, apparently. So this is very... Because of how bright this red is, you can't really tell on camera too well, but it does add a little bit of definition. I could probably go brighter, but I'm going to gloss this anyway, and so it's going to be shiny. And I didn't want it to look unrealistically polished either, right? I feel like nothing in this dank dungeon that we're constantly in this game would be super, bright and colorful. And this is already kind of pushing it. But that's what the concept art shows, so that's what I'll do. Adding a little bit kind of on her armor there, just kind of where it might show up. So here's that gold again. Like I said, I will paint this in gold because that's what it shows in the concept art. I really wish it was raised like the rest of it. It seems kind of odd to me, and there's no clear ending point. So when you look at it on yours, you'll see it just kind of blends in. Some flash glitz yellow. Again, this is going to be one layer just in her little eye sockets there, and I'm going to let a little bit go onto her upper cheeks there, but just a little bit. And now we are highlighting the skin. Scary stuff. Again, this is with the white mixed in just a little bit. Again, probably an 80-20 here, maybe even a 75-15. And just kind of getting all the little muscles. It looks super quick and super fun on this video. It is anything but. It is always the slowest part. If you ever want to speed paint, do not highlight. And at least in my book, it's always long and detailed. But you know, at least in this model, I think it really did wonders there. It really brought it out. So I did highlight the blue. You can see there on the tail. I apologize, I did not record that. I don't think I was planning it, and then I just did it. But I will show you this. So this is bringing that color back, so it's not ruined, and just keeping just a little bit in between each plate and at the edges. So just kind of barely there. And again, it is a little opaque, so it is a slightly different color. It's not right back where it was. And I think that blends in quite well once I'm done. Sticking it on the bottom, that I'm much more forgiving on. I'm just going to kind of wipe it under there and pray. I butchered that tail right there. That is rough. I'm going to touch that up. Nolan oil. This is just kind of the black shade, and I'm just going to put this all over all of the swords and daggers and weapons that she has. I almost feel like when she spawns, she should have a few spawn cards, but that might be a little ridiculous. She'd probably murderize the whole team at that point. Be sure to get the sides. And we are on to basing. Look at that. That curl is the bane of my existence. I painted some Naga for Descent 2.0 that were just wound up, and it just brings back those nightmares. Anything that's curved like that, getting inside there can be kind of difficult. And look at that, not even a cut. I'm going to bring you guys straight into the bowl and cat litter routine. So sometimes I'll cut, but I had it all prepared and ready, so that's pretty good. A little bit of touch up on the edges there, not too bad. I'm able to get my finger and press down mostly okay. The edge is kind of difficult, but it's not terrible, not too bad. Okay, gonna bring in the Contour Blue, Mechanicus Standard Gray. That's an equal parts on that, and then a Stormhost Silver. With my math, that's 50-50, and then another 10, making 110% mix. Just make sure you just add a little bit of Stormhost Silver to that. If you're following this, you can do whatever. In fact, I would suggest you don't do a custom color on the base. That is no fun to always match. Just because everything's going to have it, unless you base them all with different kind of bases. That's me dropping it. That's the second one in a row. Apparently, I drop minis a lot. I don't know. There's the raw, uncut footage for you guys, so you guys can see how the real deal is. It is not always clean, especially when you just hold the mini like I am. All right, with the detail brush, I'm just going to show you a little bit of this. It's going to touch up some of the details close to the curve. Because it's round and it curves inwards, you can really see the sides of the unpainted portion of the mini. But it, nothing too bad. So I've already skipped over to kind of the inside, just kind of the final bits. And then I skip again to the end, and we're onto the Gehenna's gold on the side. Again, all my roaming monsters are going to have gold. The roaming monsters are nowhere near difficult to notice, at least these big ones, but there are smaller ones, right? There's the kind of Egyptian pharaoh guy, and there's the Oni, who's really tiny. So there's some tiny roaming monsters that are not heroes, but might look it from afar. So I'm going to paint this one in gold. And again, several layers. I always have to do that. Just kind of kept twirling it around and marking up my my table. Here is the Gloss Coat Lacquer. This is just the gloss varnish. So I've already matte varnished it with a spray, and now I'm just going to try and bring out a little bit of that gleam. Again, I don't want anything super shiny here, so I'm just going to do a single coat of the varnish. If you coated it multiple times, it'd get shinier and shinier. It won't ever go back to a full gloss coat from a matte, because a matte does add stuff I don't know what it is. It's this white kind of particle residue. You can see it in the liquid matte that they sell. If you ever see that in the store, it's actually kind of interesting. So be sure to shake that if you ever do use it. I might get that soon just to do full painting. As it gets colder in the winter, I don't want to keep trying to find a good time to add this protective coating on it. And so again, the big shield would be nice and shiny. That shield is probably the highlight of this model. That's pretty cool. You would think it'd be the arms, and the arms are cool. Kind of reminds me of who's the guy from Mortal Kombat? Goro. Is it Goro's name? I don't know. You can tell me if you care. But anyway, and then get all these kind of... I did deem these as protective scales just because of how that strap goes into them like that. When I first started this model, I thought it might be actually part of her as a creature. But I suppose not. And there's some focus for you guys. You guys can actually see what I'm doing. Alright, some Administratum Gray. This is for the rocks, just to give them a bit of definition. You can tell it's textured from close up, but again, from tabletop, you gotta kind of add the tips of that. And here is the finished model. I really enjoyed painting Liliarch. I think she's a fantastic, very unique roaming monster in Massive Darkness. She's just a cool sculpt, but then her colors, the whole Wonder Woman theme, I don't know, it just really neat. I can't wait to fight her. I've actually never fought her in game before. Guys, if you try to paint her, I would love to see your attempt. I would love to see your take on it. Post a picture, post a video, link it. I would really enjoy to see other people's version of this. There's not a whole lot on YouTube. Again, I will be posting some Blood Rage minis next. I'm going to be prepping the Witch and the Valkyrie, so look forward to that. Additionally, I plan on actually doing some board game content, whether that's reviews or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, guys, I really enjoyed doing this. I'll talk to you guys again real soon.